Hey, you're here for the deep dive. Good.
Yeah.
Because we've got another fascinating stack of material you sent our way.
Oh, yeah. What's on the docket today?
So today, we're going down the rabbit hole with a text dated April 15th, 2025. It's called The Morning Murli.
Ah, the morning Murli. Okay. And what struck us immediately about this one was its core theme. It's framed as a very personal, heart-to-heart conversation,
Right.
as it's described, coming from a spiritual father.
A spiritual father.
Interesting. And the central idea, the thing that just keeps popping up, is this concept of insuring your life for, well, for a really long haul.
Okay. How long are we talking?
We're talking potentially extending way beyond a single lifetime, like even into the realm of immortality.
Immortality. Okay, wow. Which naturally makes you think, how is that different from the life insurance policies most of us know?
Exactly. And the Murley itself actually poses this question. It asks, what's the distinction between that conventional financial safety net
Yeah.
and this insurance that's specifically mentioned for those the text calls Brahmins?
Brahmins. Okay.
Yeah.
So that difference, that contrast, that's really the puzzle we're trying to piece together in this deep dive, isn't it?
It really is. And as we explore this, you'll find it touches on so much more than just like a transaction or a policy document.
Right.
We're looking at really fundamental ideas about the nature of who we are, as souls,
Yeah.
the concepts of purity and impurity, a whole cyclical view of how the world
Of the
unfolds,
cycle.
and the vital practice of remembrance in actually securing this spiritual insurance.
So it sounds like quite a journey into some pretty profound territory there.
Definitely prepare for it.
Okay, so let's get right to the heart of it then. This is central comparison. Traditional life insurance versus this spiritual life insurance.
Right.
As the Murley lays it out, the standard life insurance we know, that's about providing financial security for your loved ones if you pass away, right?
Exactly. It's a safety net in the material world. It deals with the tangible consequences of death in this lifetime.
Okay, makes sense.
Now, contrast that with the Murley's idea of spiritual life insurance. Here, the focus shifts entirely. It's about you, the soul.
Me, the soul.
Yeah. You're essentially insuring yourself against spiritual demise, you could say, and not just for this current life.
No.
No, but for what it describes as 21 births.
21 births. Okay, that's a significant policy term.
It is. And the ultimate benefit, the payout, if you will, of this insurance is attaining an immortal status
Immortal status.
in what's called the Golden Age. And the text really emphasizes the deep sense of happiness and security this understanding is meant to bring.
Happiness and security through immortality insurance. And what's really interesting, you mentioned this, is that the Murley clearly states that in this golden age, you won't find any insurance companies.
Right, none at all.
Why is that?
Well, the reason given is because this spiritual immortality, this state of being beyond, the negative cycles of birth and death, it's presented as the inherent condition of that era.
So it's just
Yeah.
the natural way of being.
Exactly. It suggests a fundamental shift in how we even think about risk and security, doesn't it?
It really does. In a state of inherent immortality, the very need for mitigating the consequences of death just vanishes.
Poof, gone.
It paints a picture of a truly secure existence, I guess, unlike anything we currently conceive.
Precisely. It's a vision of existence where the vulnerabilities that make conventional insurance necessary simply don't exist.
Okay.
Now, let's think about who's presenting this rather unique perspective. The text consistently refers to a spiritual father engaging in this heart-to-heart conversation.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Within the context of the Murley, who is this figure understood to be?
Well, the Murley positions this spiritual father as a supreme divine source, like the origin of this knowledge, and the one offering this spiritual insurance policy, basically. It's portrayed as a very direct and personal address, this heart-to-heart, but with a specific group in mind, right?
And who is that intended audience? The text is quite specific here.
Who is it for?
It indicates that this conversation is primarily for those who know themselves to be spirits.
They know themselves to be spirits. Okay.
It even implies that others, maybe those who haven't yet grasped this self-identification, might not fully understand the language being used.
Huh. So it's like there's a prerequisite understanding, like you need to identify with your soul self first.
That seems to be the idea, yeah. It tells us there's a particular framework of understanding being assumed here. You need to connect with that soul self to really get the message.
It's like there's an inherent understanding that you are more than just your physical body.
Definitely.
And this connects directly to the Murli's concept of immortality, doesn't it?
It does. It asserts that souls were originally immortal.
Origi-
Yes, and resided in this incorporeal world, a realm that exists beyond our physical experience.
the incorporeal world, like a soul world.
Pretty much. That's presented as the original home of all souls, a kind of land of immortality, where the cycle of birth and death, as we currently experience it, just doesn't apply.
Okay, so that's the origin point.
Right. Then, in contrast, we have our current reality, which the Murli terms the land of death.
Land of death. Bit bleak.
Well, compared to the land of immortality, maybe.
Fair enough. And the ultimate aim, the ensured outcome, if you will, is to return to that original state of immortality.
That's the goal. The Murli even links this to the idea of having a position of authority, of rulership,
Oh.
in this future land of immortality, the Golden Age.
So it's not just about existing forever, but about achieving a state of happiness and rulership in that new era.
Exactly. It's a destiny tied to this spiritual insurance policy.
Okay. So let's shift focus a bit. You mentioned the soul's journey and this grand world cycle.
Right.
The text mentions souls undertaking 84 births.
Yes. 84 births, experiencing a vast array of lives, different names, forms, locations, times, the works.
Wow. And this concept of 84 births unfolds across the different ages within the cycle described in the Murli, right?
Precisely. It outlines a progression. It starts from the Golden Age, which is characterized as Sato Pradhan.
Sato Pradhan, meaning?
It's a Sanskrit term often used to describe a state of ultimate purity and goodness. The Murli applies it to this initial era.
Okay, pure and good.
Then it moves through the Silver Age and eventually descends into the Iron Age, or Tamo Pradhan.
Regal Pradhan. So the opposite.
The most impure state, yeah.
Golden, silver, iron.
Okay.
Okay.
And it's vital to recognize that, according to the Murli, this isn't a one-way street. It's not just decline. It's a cyclical process. The world goes through these distinct stages, and then the cycle repeats endlessly.
Right, a cycle. So where does the Murli place our current time within this grand cosmic clock?
Good question. The Murli identifies our present time as the Confluence Age.
The Confluence Age.
This is presented as a uniquely significant and transformative period in the cycle. It's the time when the Father, that supreme spiritual entity we talked about,
Yeah, the spiritual father.
directly intervenes to initiate a global transformation, guiding the world from the depths of the Iron Age back towards the purity of the Golden Age.
So it's like the turning point.
Exactly. And this offer of spiritual insurance, it's being made precisely at this critical turning point.
Okay, which brings us to the core concepts of purity and remembrance. These seem essential for achieving this ensured outcome.
Absolutely essential. The Murli states that souls were originally in a state of purity but have become impure over this long cycle of births.
Right, the decline from Golden to Iron Age.
Precisely. And the method for regaining that original purity, for essentially activating this spiritual insurance, is through remembrance.
Remembrance, okay, what does that involve?
The Murli specifically mentions two key aspects of this. First, Manmanabev, which means remembering the incorporeal world, that original pure home of the soul.
Remembering where you came from, essentially.
Sort of, yes. And second, Madhyajapav,
Madhyajibav.
which involves remembering the land of immortality, the Golden Age, as the ultimate destination and goal.
So remembering the origin and the destination.
You got it. These two forms of remembrance are presented as the fundamental spiritual practices. And at the heart of it all is remembering the sweet Father.
The sweet father.
The text emphasizes that this divine being is the epitome of sweetness and love. However, the Murli also acknowledges that this process of remembrance isn't always, smooth sailing, right?
Right, I imagine not. It sounds like it would take focus.
Definitely. It points out that the obstacles of Maya,
Maya, meaning illusion.
yeah, in its broader philosophical sense, illusion, negative influences, attachments, these will inevitably arise and try to disrupt this remembrance.
Okay, so challenges are expected.
Yes, but the key, according to the Murli, is to persevere, to maintain a constant connection with the Father, even while you're just doing your daily stuff like walking or sitting.
Constant connection, even during mundane activities.
That's the ideal presented. This continuous mental and spiritual link is described as the path to remaining happy and, importantly, to cleansing ourselves of past sins or accumulated impurities.
It sounds like the Murli acknowledges that this constant remembrance isn't always easy, though. What are some of the common obstacles the text might refer to?
Well, it often speaks of attachment to the material world, to bodily consciousness.
Right, focusing on the physical instead of the soul.
Exactly. And also negative thoughts and emotions. Those are seen as major obstacles.
So how are followers encouraged to overcome them? Just remember harder.
In a way, yes. The emphasis on constant remembrance is itself the primary method. By keeping the mind focused on the divine and the ultimate goal, the idea is you weaken the hold of these negative influences.
So it's a continuous process of mental and spiritual reorientation.
That's a good way to put it.
Now, the Murli also presents a specific model of different realms of existence. Could you outline that for us?
Certainly. It describes a kind of three-tiered structure of reality.
3 tiers.
Yep. First, there's the incorporeal world, which, as we've discussed, is the original home of souls.
The soul world, got it.
Then there's the subtle region. This is depicted as a more refined, kind of intermediate level of existence.
Okay, the middle ground.
Sort of. And finally, there's the physical world, the realm where human beings currently reside, us, here, now.
Right, incorporeal, subtle, physical.
What's quite distinctive, though, is the Murli's explicit rejection of the idea of other inhabited planets or worlds out among the stars.
Really? So no aliens then?
According to this text, no. It focuses its cosmology solely on these 3 interconnected realms.
Interesting. It's a very self-contained understanding of the universe.
It is.
And this particular worldview also shapes the Murli's concept of renunciation. It talks about being unlimited renunciates even while living in this old world. What exactly does that entail? It doesn't mean becoming a hermit, does it?
No, not necessarily physically withdrawing from the world. It's more about cultivating a profound sense of detachment.
Detachment from what?
From the impermanence of this current world and its eventual destruction. Since the Murli posits that this old world is destined to be replaced by the Golden Age.
Right, the cycle.
The idea is to avoid deep attachment to something that's considered temporary and, well, in decline.
So it's a mental detachment based on understanding the bigger picture.
Exactly. A detachment rooted in understanding the cyclical nature of existence and the anticipated transformation.
Okay. Now, let's delve a little deeper into the roles of the divine figures mentioned. We have the Father, described as the ocean of knowledge and the purifier.
Yes.
What is his primary role in this whole process of spiritual insurance and world transformation?
The Father is presented as the ultimate catalyst for change, the one who descends at the confluence age, to impart this crucial spiritual knowledge, to purify souls from their accumulated impurities, to initiate the creation of the new, pure golden age, and to inspire the inevitable destruction of the old, impure world.
Wow, quite a job description.
It's a role of supreme authority, benevolence, and transformative power, as described in the text.
And the Murli also introduces the concept of the Trimurti, who are the key figures in this trinity according to the text.
Okay. The Trimurti, as described here, consists of Shiva, who is revered as the highest on high.
U-book.
And then Brahma, Vishnu, and Shankar, who are said to reside in the subtle region.
In that middle realm.
Right. Think of it like different roles or functions within a larger divine operation, though the Murli's specific interpretation is quite unique. They're presented as significant aspects or manifestations of the divine will and activity.
It's a specific theological framework, then. And what does the Murli say about the actual form of this supreme soul, Shiva? This is a really interesting point where its teachings seem to differ from some, perhaps more common, devotional understandings.
Yes, the Murli is quite explicit on this. It describes the supreme soul, Shiva, not as a person or a vast being, but as a tiny point of light.
A point of light. Like a star.
Even smaller, maybe? Imagine the vastness of space, and then picture the most concentrated, infinitesimal point of conscious energy imaginable.
Okay.
That's closer to how the Murli describes the form of the Supreme Soul, a fundamental unit of spiritual energy, rather than a grand, physical-like being.
And that contrasts with?
It directly contrasts with the perhaps more common devotional idea of an eternal, infinite light encompassing everything.
Ah, I see.
The text even alludes to a story possibly from the Bhagavad Gita where someone like Arjuna is shown this overwhelming, eternal, infinite light and asks for it to stop.
Implying it's too much or not the real thing.
Implying, within this Murli's context, that this infinite light is not the true fundamental nature of the Supreme Soul. It's a subtle but significant theological distinction they're making.
That understanding of the divine form as a point that then has implications for how individuals should relate to one another, doesn't it? the Murli strongly emphasizes love for souls, as opposed to attachment to physical bodies.
Absolutely.
Why is that distinction considered so important?
Well, the Murli posits that attachment to perishable physical bodies is a primary source of conflict and unhappiness.
Because bodies don't last.
Exactly. Bodies are temporary, subject to decay, whereas souls are considered eternal and imperishable.
Right.
Therefore, true and lasting love, according to this teaching, should be directed towards the enduring soul.
Oh,
This is why the ideal is to cultivate soul consciousness.
soul consciousness, meaning
To primarily identify with and relate to others on the spiritual level, recognizing the inherent divinity, the soul, within each individual rather than being swayed by superficial physical attributes or temporary forms.
seeing the point of light in everyone, perhaps.
That's one way to think about it, yeah.
And this emphasis on soul consciousness naturally influences how one interacts with the world and other people. The Murli places a strong emphasis on spiritual service. What does this involve in practical terms?
Spiritual service in this context essentially means sharing this spiritual knowledge, this understanding of the soul, the world cycle, the path to purity with others.
So teaching others what you've learned.
Pretty much. It's about helping them to also recognize their own soul nature, become soul conscious, and take steps towards claiming their own spiritual inheritance, their own spiritual insurance, you could say.
Yeah.
The aim is to uplift others and make them similar to oneself in this understanding and spiritual pursuit.
And considering that many followers of these teachings live within family soakers communities, the Murli also addresses the delicate topic of purity in relationships. What kind of guidance does it offer there?
That's a key point. While living within the world, the Murli places a strong emphasis on maintaining spiritual purity. It advises caution against impure thoughts and undue attraction to physical forms.
Right, consistent with the soul consciousness idea.
Exactly. Now, it does mention the concept of a pure marriage, but it presents it as a specific and perhaps even temporary exception, more like a means of protection for individuals in challenging external circumstances.
Protection from what?
Maybe pressure from family or society, situations where maintaining complete celibacy might be extremely difficult or cause other problems. It's framed as a way they might otherwise struggle to maintain their purity.
So it's not generally presented as the recommended path for everyone.
It seems not. More like a potential support in specific situations of external pressure. It's a nuanced approach to navigating relationships within that overarching goal of spiritual purification.
Okay, that clarifies things. Finally, let's bring it back to our current time, this confluence age. What is the unique significance of this period, according to the Murli, in the context of achieving this spiritual insurance? Why now?
Because the confluence age is presented as an absolutely critical and, importantly, fleeting window of opportunity.
Fleeting. So it won't last forever.
Apparently not. It's the specific time when the Father is said to be present in the world, directly imparting this divine knowledge and facilitating the global transformation from the impure Iron Age back to the pristine Golden Age.
So it's the prime time for learning and changing.
Exactly. It's considered the opportune moment to receive the spiritual understanding and to actively engage in the practices like remembrance necessary to become Satipradhan again, pure and elevated.
Okay. So, to bring it all together then, what is the ultimate aspiration?
Yeah.
The final reward for those who embrace this concept of spiritual insurance and diligently follow the teachings outlined in the Murli.
The ultimate goal, as envisioned by the Murli, is to attain a high and elevated status in the coming Golden Aged kingdom.
High status, like nobility or royalty.
Something like that, yeah. A position of happiness, authority, and spiritual fulfillment in that future immortal age. And this status is described as being earned.
Earned how?
Through the degree of spiritual service one performs and the consistency with which one maintains remembrance of the Father and embodies purity in their thoughts and actions.
So, effort equals reward in the next age.
That seems to be the equation presented. It's about securing your place, your high status in that new world order.
So in this deep dive into the Morning Murli excerpt, we've really unpacked this fascinating idea of spiritual life insurance, haven't we?
I certainly have.
This notion of insuring oneself against spiritual death for multiple lifetimes, 21 births, ultimately leading to an immortal status in the Golden Age.
It's quite a concept.
We've explored the Murli's unique understanding of the soul's journey, the whole cyclical nature of time, golden, silver, iron ages, confluence age.
The whole cycle.
And the pivotal role of remembrance and purity in achieving this ultimate spiritual security. It certainly offers a distinctive and thought-provoking perspective on life, death, and the very purpose of our existence.
It does indeed. And it leaves us with a really compelling question for you, our listener.
Oh, what's that?
Well, considering this idea of ensuring your life, not just for the immediate future, but across entire cycles of births and rebirths, how might that fundamentally alter your perspective on the present moment, on your long-term aspirations?
That's a big one. How does insuring for 21 births change today?
Or, put another way, if you truly believed in an immortal status that could be attained through dedicated spiritual practice, like this constant remembrance, how might that deeply influence your daily choices, your priorities?
Yeah, what becomes important if immortality, or at least a very long high-status existence, is on the table?
Exactly. How might it shift your understanding of what truly matters?
These are definitely the kinds of profound questions that emerge when we delve into such unique and comprehensive belief systems.
For sure.
Thank you for bringing this fascinating source material to our attention. We sincerely hope this deep dive has offered you some truly insightful food for thought.
Absolutely. And we encourage you, keep those fascinating sources coming our way. We're always eager to embark on these explorations with you here on The Deep Dive.
Until our next journey into the depths.